All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We acknowledge the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. I have received two regrets for this evening. Directors Goodwin and Directors Dermont. They have conflicting schedules and they could not make this evening. Can I have a motion on the table that the Board of Directors adopt the agenda as presented? Vice Chair Phillips and seconded by Director Bottinger. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, we'll move into the voting process. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
We lost the boardroom, it looks like.
My bad. No worries. Okay, so once again, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes with unanimous consent. Moving on to conflict of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare for this evening? As I see none, we'll move on to the comments from the chair of the board and CGO. Not much going on my end. Thank you to everybody who sent in their schedules. We have some availability time to discuss this evening. All of the directors who I messaged about attendance have responded to me, and it mainly has to do with some email troubles and scheduling conflicts, and they were willing to rectify those situations as soon as possible. Ian, I'll reach out to you very soon about Director Hashmi's email. She apparently doesn't have access to it at all, and so she hasn't seen any of the information we've been sending her. I think it's a similar situation to what happened to Director Bottinger, so we'll have to work on that from an operational standpoint. And that's it from my end. Moving on to comments from the President and CEO. President Symington, take it away.
All right, so since we last met, Students Union sent 144 students to the Jays game on college and universities night, which everyone was present. Everybody got a Jays hat with a Golden Hawk logo on the side, which is really cool. And the Jays won 6-3. So that was awesome. We had a ton of success with our homecoming tailgate event. Another success, that ping pong table out there has kind of turned around the space out in the 2-4 lounge, which is kind of what we were going for. So we're seeing a lot more action out there. With respect to menstrual equity, there are now dispensers out in that back hallway back there, as well as I don't know what exactly you'd call, but like something to dispose of those products in every washroom out there. I'm not sure if they've made their way all the way around campus, but we're really happy to see that go in the right direction. Consent week went pretty well. We saw success in most areas. Our bang and brunch was really, really good, and we're thinking about potentially seeing what that could look like in orientation week next year, because I think it's really good. The bang brunch is essentially like a consent talk marketed as how to have the best sex of your life, which consent and CSEDI struggled to have kind of a turnout during orientation weeks, but we saw students actually going and registering. We had 115 students up at the turret. So I feel like we've kind of found a really good way to engage that type of programming for orientation week next year. We were happy with how we went about the rally. The turnout was a little bit tough. Obviously weather was not great, but we would have liked to see more students, but that's just the reality of the situation. Room bookings are tight right now. We're seeing a lot of people on the, especially on the club end of things, complain that they can't get a room booked, but that's because it's even a struggle for us as room bookings have been frozen for everybody until after reading week. Other than that, we have our SU kickoff events for our volunteers tomorrow on the Waterloo campus and then Thursday on the Brantford campus, and that launches our point system, which is our volunteer incentivization program, which allows student volunteers, the more they engage, they collect points and they can go and redeem those points on the merchandise we have we've ordered this year. So yeah, those are updates. I think things are looking pretty good right now.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the president and CEO? Okay, let's see none. We'll move on to the fall meeting schedule. So thank you to everyone who sent in their schedules. I received 6 out of 11, and we were able to come up with some availability based on that. The availability we came up with were Monday and Thursdays beyond 6 p.m. So let's start a discussion on that. Which days do the board prefer? Vice Chair.
Question: is it Tuesdays or is it Thursdays?
Monday and Thursday.
Okay, and just so you know, then the agenda package is listed as Tuesdays.
Correct. On the agenda package, it did mention Tuesdays instead of Thursdays.
Okay. Okay.
And that,
My apologies. So we'll move to Tuesdays and Thursdays beyond 6 p.m. Vice Chair.
right, Tuesdays and Thursdays or Mondays and Thursdays?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Oh, okay, so I'm supposed to say Monday. Okay.
Wait, hold on. Is it Tuesdays and Thursdays or is it Mondays and Thursdays?
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay.
Vice Chair.
I like Tuesdays at 7:30.
Okay. Anybody else for Tuesdays at 7:30?
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Okay, is that Director Bativiu's hand up? I can't really see from here.
Yeah, it is. Here looks good too.
Okay, go ahead.
I think they're just voting for.
Yeah. So if there's no further discussion on it, can I have a motion on the table to make the board meetings every Tuesday at 7:30? Sorry, every Tuesday bi-weekly at 7:30. Director Murphy, seconded by
I'll second.
our Vice Chair, Director Abu-Rashid. Would you like to speak to your motions?
I'm okay.
Any discussion on the matter? Yes.
I noticed in the briefing as well, it just mentioned regarding the scheduling of our next board meeting, since we don't have another, our next board meeting would fall during reading week. Would that be starting then on Tuesday, the 18th, bi-weekly starting then?
Yes.
Okay, just want to clarify that.
Okay, so starting the 18th. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that's none. Motion passes with unanimous consent. The meetings will take place every Tuesday at 7:30. Next up, we have the spring and summer term financial report. Move that on to Director of Finance Administration, Chris Turner. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me bring this forward to you tonight. So what happens at various times throughout the year, I'll bring a financial update to you to show you where we are financially at a certain point of the year. So the numbers we are looking at tonight are for the first 3 months of our fiscal year, and our fiscal year runs from May 1st to April 30th. So this is basically our first quarter results for the year. The first thing, just to for those of you that look closely at the numbers, if any of you kind of gulped when you looked at our statement of operations for the first 3 months and saw that we are in a deficit of $829,000 already. I hope that didn't cause any of you to lose any sleep, but I'll talk to that in a second. But so there's 3 documents in your package tonight. There's a schedule of expenses, and we'll look at that one first. So for the first 3 months, we've incurred actual expenses of $1.197 million against a budget of $1.986 million. So for the first 3 months of the year, we're almost $800,000 under our expense budget, and that's primarily driven by the second line, which is the health and dental claims. So you'll see there's only been claims of approximately $395,000 against a budget of a little over $1 million. So we're significantly under our anticipated health and dental claims, which happened last year as well. So it doesn't come as a huge surprise to me at this point. We'll skip the next statement, which is a statement of operations, and we'll go to the statement of schedule of revenues. On that statement, you'll see that we've had actual revenues for the first 3 months of $369,000 against a budget of $496,000. So we're about $127,000 under where we said we'd be for revenues at this point in the year. That's mostly driven by, if you look at the Wilfs line, so we weren't open at all during the summertime. When we had set this budget, we anticipated that we might possibly be open for business a little bit in the summer. Just didn't happen with COVID and not having enough staff. So we've saved money on the expense side for Wilfs, but we're also under budget because it was not open. So if we flip back to the statement of operations, you'll see for the 3 months, we've had revenues of $369,000, expenses of $1,199. So at this point in time, we're at a deficit of $829,729. I just want to assure the board that this is normal for the first 3 quarters, or sorry, for the first period of the year. We always, since probably the inception of the student union, have run a deficit in the first quarter. I looked at last year's number. To this point in time, the deficit was about $810,000. So we're right in the exact same ballpark. And the reason for that is in that first quarter period, we have very little in the way of revenues coming in. For this fiscal year, we don't start collecting any significant student fees or any of our health and dental money until the fall term. So revenues are quite low. Expenses are fairly even across the year. So while we're not generating any revenue for the first quarter, our expenses are marching ahead as normal. So this typically is the case, a deficit of this magnitude for the first quarter. Once we look at the next set of statements, you'll see that start to reverse as we pull in student fees, health and dental money. Wilfs is now open. Golden Grounds in Brantford is now open. Anything that generates revenue for us is up and going. So as we move ahead, that picture will change dramatically. As I said, just some information for the board. Health and dental, again, this year, similar to the last couple of years, I think the overall uptake and usage of the plan will be under budget significantly. On the other hand, for our operation of Wilfs, I think we'll struggle to hit our revenue numbers for the year for Wilfs. And there's a number of factors associated with that. We can get into that in more detail at another point in time once we have a bit more data and it's been open longer. But as I said, it wasn't open in the summer. We have a first-year cohort, a second-year cohort, and a third-year cohort who haven't really been able to take advantage and a dine-in experience at Wilfs Restaurant. So there's a lot of marketing we need to do to get that message out there about the restaurant. And we'll start and continue to do that. We're going to try to get our online ordering up and going as soon as possible. On the expense side with Wilfs, we've got a staff, a very rookie, very green staff that we need to bring up to speed quickly. You typically at this point on a regular year pre-COVID, we'd have second, third, and fourth year students who had worked in Wilfs for at least one season and some employees for 3 or 4 seasons. So we had a fairly experienced staff right out of the blocks. This year, almost the significant portion of the staff is brand new. So it's going to take them a while to get up and going. So we've been, baby steps so far. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to take too much time, but I can open it up for questions at this point if anybody has any.
Director Bobinger.
So I noticed in the expenses part, the actual and variance added up is $1 less. I don't know if that's just like a little nitpicky thing or probably goes.
Sorry, $1?
Yeah, a singular dollar. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's probably that'll just be rounding of the cents that we don't show.
Okay.
So that's why that would be.
Any further questions for the Director of Finance Administration?
Yeah, I have oh, sorry. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
So when will we receive the report for the second period? I guess we're starting August, September, October.
Yeah, so it would end August, September, October, and then it takes us about a month to get all the numbers in and get everything finalized. So potentially December, it depends on exams and the board schedule and what's going on. December is always a tricky month for your board to meet because of exams and because of people leaving for the holidays. So if not late December or early December, it would be in January for sure. Very shortly, we will be bringing to you the draft audited statements for last fiscal year. So the entire year. So you guys will get a look at what a full year's financial picture actually is. It is the previous year, but things are fairly consistent year to year, and that will be coming forward shortly.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Director Boucher, go ahead.
So what do we have any projections on what the second period will look like, and would you be able to share that with the board?
I don't have any projections right now because we're just getting going back to school, but enrollment is right around what we budgeted for. So the student fees that we've anticipated in the budget should be very close once we get our actual numbers. Health and dental, as I said, our usage is down, so I anticipate a significant surplus there. Wilfs will be under on the revenue side, but also there'll be some savings on the cost side as well. Interestingly, the Golden Grounds coffee kiosk in Brantford has done quite well since we've had it open at the start of September. And I think that has to do with it being the only game in town on the Brantford campus. So it's actually done better than what we anticipated. So for that second quarter, I imagine we'll be pretty close to a budgeted position once that comes forward, but it's still a little early to say.
So do you expect a deficit or a surplus?
I don't know. It's too early at this point. Oh, so at that point in time, we'll be bringing forward 6 months worth of data. I anticipate we'll probably still be in a little bit of a deficit at that point in time. And it'll probably flip over to a balanced position or a surplus when we bring the third quarter numbers forward. That's typical.
Right. And and with the expectation that we should be running a surplus by the end of the fiscal year, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, I see none. Thank you, Chris. Very much appreciated this report. Looking forward to future ones.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good meeting. We'll see you later.
Chris.
Next up, I will yield the floor to Vice Chair Phillips for the Ad Hoc Honorarium Committee update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Ad Hoc Honorarium Committee presented to the board at our last meeting with our draft recommendation. We've since gone and updated the changes that we discussed during that meeting and are ready to present these two recommendations to the board. So nothing much has changed on this document with the exception of the reporting of the governance coordinator in recommendation 1 has been amended to also include the director of policy, research, and advocacy to assist with some of the ad hoc responsibilities that they will have to pick up on the day-to-day basis. We've also gone through and put a suggested salary range. I guess it didn't provide a range, but a suggested salary per hour for the this position as well. And with the suggested hours a week, I know in previous conversations we've had with the board, we talked about starting with a conservative amount of hours per week that we believe they will work. In the instance that they work more, it's better that they receive a pay raise than it turns out they work less and we cut their wages. So we've started at 10 hours a week, and that's something we can take a look at as the semester progresses and evaluate how much work they're doing, especially around election season. And so that's recommendation 1. There's the creation of that new role. And then recommendation 2 is regarding the cash honorarium for the CGO, since that has been redacted or actually removed from the position. Now, I remember at a previous meeting and conversations with Phil and Ian, we talked about the, I believe it was a tuition bursary that the president and CEO receives. I didn't have the number for that. I couldn't find the number for that. But the second part of the recommendation is providing that to the CGO as compensation for the duties they perform during the year without really getting into conflict of interest territory and having the CGO technically an employee and a governing body of the organization. Those are the recommendations, both 1 and 2. The board is welcome to approve 1, both, or neither of them. But this is the finding I'd like to present to the board, and I'd like to, thanks. So I hand it back to you.
Okay, we'll open the floor for discussion. Are there any comments or questions for the Vice Chair? Director Baruchia, go ahead.
I just want to say, first off, well done, Vice Chair, on your work on this. I think you've done a stellar job. I agree. Although I agree with a wage of $23 an hour, I'd just like to hear a little bit about how you came to that number. I think that is a fair compensation based on the work that they are doing and the value that they are providing. But I would just like to hear a little bit about how you got there.
Yeah, of course. So unfortunately, Director Dermott is not here today, but Director Murphy, I'm sure, can attest to this as well. That's akin to the wages that other employees, the students union, are receiving, as far as I understand it. Other part-time employees as themselves, it may even be a touch higher, perhaps. However, given the duties and the ad hoc responsibilities of the role and kind of the fast-paced nature of it, I believe that to be the committee believes that to be a fair wage for this position.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any further questions or comments? Sure.
Can I motion for this recommendation, or does that have to come from another director?
I think you can. Bill, Ian, can you confirm that the vice chair can motion to confirm these recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, if someone on the board felt like there was a conflict in that, they could speak to that, but I don't think there's any concerns given what's on the table.
Okay. Well, then I'd like to motion that the board approve the both recommendations found by the ad hoc honorarium committee.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Director Rashid. Would you like to speak to your motions?
Thank you to Directors Bottinger, Murphy, and Dermott for all of your work over the summer on this committee. Well.
Okay, any further excuse me. Any further comments or questions?
I did have a question. Did we not amend, I think, was it last meeting or 2 meetings ago, the strategic ends of the student union?
We did, yes.
Okay. On the briefing note, it hasn't been updated. I just kind of noticed that. I did have a question as well for the president. In the briefing note, section 12, subsection C, it says NFP ONCA transition updating the SU bylaws in accordance with the updates to the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act. I was wondering if you'd be able to give me a little bit of detail as to what that is.
You don't want to help me out here?
Yeah, so I can check off a couple boxes. One,
Also, really quick, can we get a page number on that just for everybody over here?
it's part of Tony's updates to the board report.
Gotcha.
Oh, up here.
So the edit to the strategic ends that hasn't been updated yet in the policy manual, that would be one of the tasks, for example, that the governance coordinator would help to execute. So that is coming. It's effective as of the date that the motion was approved, but the policy manual has yet to be updated. So that will be updated shortly. What is being referred to in the updates for the Director of Strategic Initiatives is that all not-for-profit organizations in Ontario are required to comply with legislation that's coming into effect. Essentially, the Not-for-Profit Act has been in existence for quite some time, had not yet received royal assent. So it had given a long runway for not-for-profit organizations to make any amendments to their constitution bylaws in order to comply with the new legislation. Previously, we would be party to the Corporations Act, which had provisions for organizations like ourselves. Now that this new not-for-profit specific legislation is coming into or is in effect, and it gives us a certain, I believe it's 3 years to comply with the provisions. So one of the strategic projects that Tony is spearheading for us is to continue some work that last board started, which is doing a kind of inventory of our bylaws, taking a look at our structure and making sure that we identify the things that we need to do to become in compliance within the time frame allotted to us by that legislation. We've had consultations with our lawyers who have given us some briefing materials. So he's kind of taking the lead to make sure that that project is progressing as it needs to so that we can meet our compliance requirements.
Perfect. On that note of Tony, I would like to ask you a second question. I had a brief conversation with him last week. I don't know if he may have briefed you on it. Looking at a board level approach to engaging or comparing how we engage with local policymakers in Waterloo and Kitchener versus how the student union engages with local policymakers here in Brantford, just to kind of give us a better idea of what makes the relationship work well in Waterloo in terms of student advocacy, and how we can use some of those strategies and to improve the advocacy for the student experience here in downtown Brantford. As a great testament to that, having walked here in downtown to this meeting, there are quite a lot of problems with lighting, etc. That I think that a board approach to kind of at least being able to find what Waterloo, how we're engaging with Waterloo policymakers and how we're engaging with Brantford policymakers, and then adjusting that. I think that may be a good idea. I'd like to get your input on that.
Yes, I mean, that's something certainly that Shane can take back to his team. I mean, certainly we have a long history of student-led advocacy in both Brantford and Waterloo. I mean, lighting being one example of things that we've been addressing for quite a while. So there may be an opportunity for the Government and Stakeholder Relations Department to provide the board with an update of some of what it's been doing, some of its plans for the new year. We have each year in the winter term something called Local Advocacy Week, where we are meeting with local representatives from the respective municipalities on issues such as those, so the Brantford specific topics as well as Waterloo specific topics. So there's a possibility to kind of chat about what that looks like, and then that's again a volunteer driven opportunity. So there may be an opportunity if there are some board members who would like to participate in Local Advocacy Week. That's something that we could certainly explore with the Vice President of Government and Stakeholder Relations, depending on how they're kind of operationalizing that.
Right.
But Shane and I can chat, and then maybe we can set up a meeting offline with you, Mohammed, and just to kind of chat through what some of the ideas that you have and how we could kind of bring that to the board for a future conversation.
And I think that it's really important that based on the conversation that I had with Tony, is that like maybe actually cooperating with the institution and approaching at it not only from like the university perspective, from the student body perspective as well. So coordinating with their actions, for example, with Dean of Students and especially the Dean of Students here in Brantford, so that we can best advocate for our population. So I'd love to hear maybe from the president about what their goals for local advocacy here in Brantford, if that would be okay.
Yeah, so it's been in my, even in my platform, when I ran back in January, that was because it seems like a relatively simple solution when it comes to something that could fix what the experience is like to walk around downtown Brantford at night. Because yeah, it would definitely improve how safe it feels and how safe it actually is to walk around the downtown area, even during the day, with how much homelessness there is down there. With that said, I think this year presents like a very unique opportunity with the fact that there are municipal elections coming up this month, where we're able to advocate to politicians on those key issues. So hopefully they can take that into account when they're actually, in their final stretch now, because I believe it's October 24th, that final stretch of what might make that difference. And then hopefully when whoever comes into office, we can kind of try and hammer that point home that this is something that students of the area who do have as much vote as anyone else want to see.
Right.
And that are crucial to their university experience.
And that's why I wanted to kind of bring it to the board's attention this week, because the election is right around the corner for them. And certainly in Ward 2 and Ward 3 here in Brantford, the student population is quite significant. So kind of really really taking this opportunity with to the best of our ability. Last question for you, Mr. President, is actually about the student manager program. I was wondering if you had any thoughts about bringing it back.
I'm not actually aware what the student manager program is. Ian, is your hand up? You're muted.
Sorry, it's still up for something
Oh, is
related
that
to
the Wilkes one? Am I right on that?
I'm not sure what is being referred to with the student manager. My hand's still up for the something about the 2 recommendations still on the table for the honorary ad hoc committee.
I was also wondering if we were going to continue voting on that. Actually, are we?
Oh,
Yeah, about that.
oh my God, I've completely derailed. Did we not vote?
No.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. My
Okay.
apologies.
So first of all, directors, thank you very much for your questions. They're very substantive. However, please have these questions before we adopt the agenda. This way we can stay on track to all the things that we have on the agenda for the evening. So with that being said, I believe we seconded the motion, correct? Okay. So would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it might make sense to vote independently on recommendation 1 and recommendation 2. That way you could vote on recommendation 2 and ask for the operations team to present the specifics of what the tuition bursary was, just so the board was confident that it met their kind of expectations.
If Vice Chair, go ahead.
So, just to clarify, so can I rescind my previous motion and motion firstly that the board adopt the first recommendation of the ad hoc honorary committee?
Okay.
I'll second that.
So, motion by Director Lewis-Shid, seconded by Director Bottinger. Would you like to speak to your motions?
Okay.
Any discussion on the matter? As I see none, all those in favor, please raise your hands. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 6-0. Can I have a motion on the table to adopt the second recommendation from the committee? Motion by Vice Chair Phillips, seconded by Director Bottinger. Would you like to speak to your motions?
So, Ian, so now is when you suggest we pulled the
Yeah, I
actual.
mean, you could motion to approve it and then ask for the specific details, because it may, depending on the mechanics of it, it may look differently than what exists for the student executive team. So just for transparency, if the board had an opportunity just to have a final look at the ironed out details of it to make sure that it meets the intent.
Okay. Then I'll motion that the board adopts recommendation 2 pending the exact amounts from operations provided to us the following meeting.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Phillips, seconded by Director Lewis-Shid. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, the motion passes 7-0. Moving onwards to in camera. Can I have a motion on the table that the board of directors proceed to an in-camera session?
Point clarification. Who should we move into this in-camera meeting with regarding the performance reviews? that everybody currently present?
Yeah, we usually just divide it up and the person, and if any conflicts of interest come for a certain review, they leave the room. That's usually how it's done. Do you have a question, Shane?
Thought I was supposed to leave the room. Right? Am I for performance review? Am I not supposed to leave the room?
So how it'll work is we'll enter in camera, you'll be excused while they do your review. You'll come back in, vice versa. It's a lot easier to execute, given that both you and the chair are in President Waterloo. You can just hop out to the office and we can pull you back in.
Gotcha.
So can I have a motion that the board of directors proceed to an in-camera session?
I'll motion.
Okay, motion by Director Burchett and seconded by Director Murphy. Would you like to speak to your motions? Any discussion on the matter? So I see none, we'll move to voting. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And any abstentions? So I see none, the motion passes 7-0, and we